Hello there, I'm Thundaga, and welcome to my How to Make a Pokemon Game tutorial series. This series will cover all of the essential info that you need to make a Pokemon game in RPG Maker and Pokemon Essentials. In this episode, we'll be looking at text commands and fonts. Text commands can be used to do a lot of cool things with the show text event commands in your game. First, we'll do a quick overview of how to use text commands and some of the basics. Then we'll look at some of the ways that you can display things, such as images or other windows, by using text commands. Then we'll look at some of the ways that we can get values for our text, such as the player's name or the value of a variable. After that, we'll look at how we can change the color of our text. Then we'll do a run through of the other text commands that allow you to change other things, such as the timing of the text message box, positioning, formatting, and sound effects even. And lastly, we'll cover how we can add new fonts to the game and use those in our text boxes, or even apply them to the whole game. With all that said, let's get into it. So, what exactly is a text command? A text command is a short string of characters that, when entered inside of a show text event command, will cause the game to do some cool things, such as alter the text or display additional stuff. Text commands are usually denoted by a backslash character, but they can also be sometimes denoted by the less than and greater than characters. As a little teaser of what's to come, an example I'll give is that if you type /b in a show text command, all of the text that appears after the /b will be colored blue. In this example, /b is the text command, and its function is changing the text color. You don't need to add a space after the text command here, by the way. Just putting the command and then your text immediately afterwards is fine. There are a lot of text commands that we'll be looking into in this tutorial, and if you want to see the full list yourself, you can go to the Essentials Docs wiki. The link will be in the video description. Be sure to click on the headers in this table here to see all of the different sections that there are of text commands. Since we'll be working with the show text event command primarily today, let's be sure to also make use of extend text. As a reminder, in your game's root folder should be an executable file called extendtext.exe. If you run this while editing a show text event command, it will give you so much more space to work with. See, here's an example. I will double click it and run it, and look at that! Our show text window now is a lot larger. Now, let's get started with some text commands, starting with the commands that we can use to show things. The first things that we can look into showing are some additional windows. The text command /g will cause the player's current money to appear as a window in the top left corner of the screen. The reason it's G, if you remember from some of the last tutorials, is that the player's money is internally referred to as gold. This is super useful if you want to have an event where the player's money is used, like if there's an NPC that sells you a rare but expensive item. It helps to see how much money you have before and after the purchase, by the way. The next window that we could show is our game corner coins by using the /cn command. I don't use this too often, but it's good to have the option. You can also show both at the same time. When you do, be sure to use /g first and then /cn second. Otherwise, the coins window will be immediately overridden by the gold window. I'll show an example on screen right now, but here's what it looks like if you use coins and then gold. Here's what it looks like if you use gold and then coins. It's worth mentioning, by the way, we can use a bunch of different text commands in the same show text. Right now we're using /g and /cn, but if we wanted to, we could also throw in a /b here. This way we can see all the money and the coins, and now the text in our window will be blue. You can also show images with text commands. If you type /f, and then in brackets, type the name of a picture that exists in the game's graphics pictures folder, it will then display that image in a window above the left of the text window. So for example, if we go into our game's graphics and then pictures folder, we can scroll and look and find that we already have a fantastic image that we could use here called Intro Meryl. So in our show text, let's type Intro Meryl and make sure it's spelled right. Now look at that, isn't that Meryl fantastic? One thing to note though is that if the image is too tall or too wide, it can be cut off. For example, if we use types.png, which is a very tall image, it will run to the top of the screen and then start cutting from the bottom of the image to make it fit. Tall image files can also totally overlap with the money and coins windows, and that doesn't look great, so image size is something you should definitely be mindful of here. Thankfully, the next text command allows us to crop our images. Instead of using /f, if we use /ff, this will draw our image, but crop it into a 96 by 96 square from the top left of the image. This can be useful for drawing faces for characters that are talking, so if we use /ff and intro oak, we would only see his head and the upper body. One thing to keep in mind is that /ff will always draw a 96 by 96 square, so if the picture is smaller than that, then the right and bottom edges of the square will be filled with empty white space. For larger images, you can also add a comma and then a number after the image file's name to specify which quadrant of the image you wish to draw. A good way to visualize this is that images are broken up into multiple 96 by 96 squares, and each square has an ID, starting with 0. I made this example image here, and it's 384 by 384, which is 96 times 4. This way we have 4 by 4, so 16 quadrants. /ff defaults to showing 0, so the top leftmost quadrant. The quadrants are then organized such that the top row is 0, 1, 2, 3, and then the next one is 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. I put the image file in our game's pictures folder, and I called it 96 grid. And then if we specify a number afterwards, so comma 5, when we talk to this NPC, it will display the 5th quadrant. This can be super useful if you just want to have a grid of 96 by 96 character faces all set up on one image file instead of making a separate file for each face. Speaking of faces, the /ff command will attempt to search for the file in the graphics faces folder first, and then it will fall back on searching inside the graphics pictures folder second. The graphics faces folder does not exist by default in Pokémon Essentials, by the way, but you could make that folder in your game if you wanted to. I never have, but this does support my point about /ff being very useful for character faces. The last way that we can draw images with text commands is by drawing icons inside of the text itself. By using the text command of > and then typing in icon equals, and then the name of our icon, and then finally a greater than sign, we can draw an icon in the text. These icons live inside of the game's graphics icons folder, and they're all pretty small files with a size of 18 by 32. I like this one here, bag pocket 1, so in our text command, let's say icon equals bag pocket 1. What this will do is now draw that icon at the start of our text. If we wanted to, we could even put another icon at the end of the text and say bag pocket 2. There we go. If you're displaying an icon at the end of the text, make sure that you put another character or a space, otherwise the icon won't display. As we can see in game now, we have some icons in our text. If you ever want to make a new icon, I recommend that you keep it small. I've got a test icon here that's 100 by 100, and if we try to use this in-game, it's not going to look great. As we can see, it doesn't run any further down past our current text line, but it does extend horizontally the full 100 pixels. So that's something to keep in mind if you ever want to make a new icon. That's it for drawing images in Windows with text commands. Now let's look at some commands that allow us to pull data values. I use these a ton. If we want to grab our player's name and display that in text, we can use /pn. PN stands for player name. This way we can have a character call us by our name in text, regardless of what we name ourselves at the start of the game. We can even use /pn in a map name, so for example, we can see in the base essentials maps here that there is /pn's house. This way, when we're in game, the name of the map will be Red's house, or whatever else we choose to name ourselves. We can also get our player's current money by using /pm. I don't use this one too often, to tell you the truth, because I actually prefer using /g to display that money in a separate window. It is good to know that /pm exists though, because it does have its uses. The last command here though is super useful. I use this one a lot. By typing /v and then in brackets specifying a number, we can grab the value of a variable. So for example, /v53 will grab and display the value stored in variable 53. Variable 53 is a test variable that we made in a previous tutorial. This text command is super useful. I won't go into it too much deeper here, but let's just say that variables are super important and can hold more than just numbers as their values. As we cover more complicated topics in the future, we'll be storing text or even Pokémon themselves in variables. But that's a topic for another time. Now, let's look at how we can change the color of our text. I already mentioned it earlier, but we can use /b to make the text color after this command blue, and we can use /r to make the text color after this command red. Pokémon Essentials typically associates the color blue with male characters and red with female characters, so keep that in mind as we review the next couple of text commands. Don't worry about this limitation though, because there are so many more ways that we can color our text. The /pg command will change the color of our text to match our player's gender. If we're playing as Red or any other male character, this will make the text blue. And if we're playing as Leaf or any other female character, this will make the text red. We can go into more detail on how to set up characters in a future tutorial also. There is also the /POG command, or POG, that will display the color opposite of our player's gender. So as an example, if we're playing as a male character, /POG will cause the text to be red. This is useful, but also feels a bit limiting. Thankfully, we can set the color of the text in so many more ways. First off, we can use /C, and then in brackets, we can plug in a number to select one of 13 preset colors. I'll go through them all right now. 0 is the default color, which is defined in our scripts. 1 is blue. 2 is red. 3 is green. 4 is cyan. 5 is magenta. 6 is yellow. 7 is gray. 8 is white. 9 is purple. 10 is orange, and 11 is the dark default color, which is defined in our scripts. 12 is the light default color, which is also defined in the scripts. To edit the colors that are defined in the scripts, take a look into the message config script. At the top here, we can see that there are some colors and text shadows defined by some RGB values. The first being R or red, the second being G or green, and the third being B or blue, RGB. We can also see some fonts and font sizes defined in here as well, as a little bit of foreshadowing for later in this tutorial. A little bit further down in the script, at around line 330, we can also see where the other text colors are defined. There are even more ways to change text color too. These are a bit more advanced, and I've never used them, but let's go over them together real quick. The first is by using /, and then, in brackets, plugging in two adjacent 15-bit hexadecimal color values, where the first 4 characters are the color of the text, and the second 4 characters are the color of the shadow behind the text. An example of this would be 0664 4BD2. In this, 0664 is the value of the text color, and 4BD2 is the value of the shadow color. These particular values will make the text green. But yeah, like I said, I've never used this before, and I'm not as familiar with hexadecimal color values. But it's good to know that we have the option to plug in some custom colors this way. It's also possible to make these hexadecimal color values apply to only a range of text characters. The way that we can do that, first let me make sure that I've copied this right on. The way that we can do this is by doing the less than sign and then C2 equals followed by the value. Then we can close that off with the greater than sign. Then somewhere else in the text, what we can do is less than sign / C2 and then greater than sign and then close that off. Let me also delete this space here, and there we go. In this example, only half of the text will be colored specially, and the other half will just use the default color values. We start by defining a C2 equals, and then at the end, we break out of that C2 right here. This formatting will also be what we use for the next couple of text color commands. Instead of C2, if we just use C, let me go and replace C2 in both of these cases. If we use just C, what we can do is plug in a direct hexadecimal code with no shadow value. The format for this hexadecimal code is using 8 characters, where the first 2 are the red values, followed by the green values, the blue values, and finally the alpha values, which control the transparency. These alpha values are optional though, and they default to FF, which is fully opaque, or no transparency. Since these are optional, let's just delete them so that way the text is fully opaque. I went online and used a hex code generator to find this color right here, which is 1E81B0. This is a nice blue, and here's how it looks in-game. We can also use C3 to instead plug in 2 hex code values and have them separated by a comma, where the first color value is the color of the text. The second color value is the color of the shadow. So in this case, we could set our text color to this first blue value, and then we can set the shadow to a slightly darker blue hex code value. I've got that value right here, which is 063970. This will be a nice darker blue. And here's how that looks in game. Looks pretty good, right? We can use custom colors this way. And that's about all there is for text coloring. Now, let's look into ways that we can alter text elements such as timing or formatting. Worth mentioning real quick, the Player's House map in the Base Essentials maps has a lot of great examples when it comes to events that alter the text formatting. In fact, this event right here actually shows a lot of the things that we've already talked about, such as text colors. For us though, let's start by looking into text timing, since this is the one I probably use the most. To alter the speed that the text is displayed, you can use /TS and then specify a number here in brackets. The number inside determines how long to wait before displaying the next character, so a low value will make the text speed really fast, so 1, and a high number here will make the text speed really slow, like 30. Here's what a text speed of 1 looks like versus a text speed of 30. If this value here is left blank, then that means the text will appear immediately. If you use /1, it will pause the message at the location where you placed the text command. So let's actually go and place this in the middle of our text command and delete it from the start. When it reaches this pause point, we'll need to press a button to continue displaying the text. Here's how this would look in game. You need to press the button and then the text continues displaying. You can also use text commands to finely tune that timing. If you use /period, it will make the message pause for 1/4 of a second before moving on to show the rest of the text. This can be used multiple times in a row too, so if you do /period, it will now wait half of a second. If you use slash and then this vertical line character, that will make the game wait 1 second before moving on. This line character can be typed by holding shift and then pressing the / key in the top right of the keyboard above the enter key. You know, the slash that we typed right here. I only mention this because I forget where this character is all the time. If you use /WT and then enter a value in brackets here, you can make the game wait a specific number of frames. 20 frames would be 1 second, so if we did 30 frames, that would be 1.5 seconds. The last timing command is probably the one that I use the most. This is /WTNP. Just like the others, you can set a value in brackets here to make the game wait a set number of frames. The difference is that if this command is used at the end of the text, it will automatically close the text box or move on to the next text box after waiting those number of frames. So if we use /WTNP and then 20, it will reach the end and then automatically close the text box after 20 frames or 1 second. This will also ignore user input, so the player cannot press enter to close it early. This is super useful if you want to create moments where the text does not wait for user input and instead advances at its own speed that you get to manually determine. It's super useful and I use it in a lot of cutscenes. Now, let's look into ways that we can modify the text window. /W followed by the name of a window skin file in brackets will change the background image or skin of the current window. If the value inside of the brackets is left blank, then this will display our text with no background or window skin. The window skin image files can be found inside of the game's graphics window skins folder. Let's scroll down here and look at all these cool window skins. I like Speech RS. Let's use it so it looks more like the speech window from Ruby and Sapphire. In our text command here, let's type speech /RS. Now look at that, doesn't it just look great in game? Next up is /sign. Just like before, you can, in brackets, define the name of a window skin for this command. Let's also use speech RS here. Just like before, also, if we left that empty, it would display our window with no window skin. The sign command causes the text window to slide up and into the frame when it appears, and then slide down out of the frame when the text is advanced or disappears. Funnily enough, the sign command itself is actually a combination of some of the wait and text speed commands that we looked into a little bit ago, as well as some other commands that we'll look into right now. /OP will make it so that way the window slides up and into the frame when the text box is opened. /CL will make it so the window slides down and out of the frame when the text box is closed. For CL, it's optional, but we can also define the name of a sound effect file here from our game's Audio SE folder. This will play the sound effect when the window is closed. The next command is /L. /L followed by a number in brackets will increase how many lines of text the window displays at once. The default value for this is 2, but if we wanted to, we could crank this up to 4. This way we can now see 4 lines at once and it'll display a really tall text window. We can also change the position of the text window by using /WU to display it at the top of the screen, /WM to display in the middle of the screen, or /WD to display at the bottom of the screen, which is the default position. Now, let's talk about text positioning. There are commands that we can use to alter the position of the text within the text window itself. First off, and the one that I use the most, is /N for a line break. Wherever you place this command inside of the text will insert a line break there, so let's place it in the middle of our text. Now, in-game, we'll see the first half of our text on the first line, and then the second half of our text on the second line. Next up is text alignment. If we use >, AC, and then greater sign, and then at the end, we do the same, but we have a / here, then this will make it so that way all of the text between these two commands are center aligned. This will also force line breaks if there's any text before and after these commands. If we use AL instead, this will make all of the text left aligned, which is the default. If we do this with AR, it will make all of the text right aligned. Let's do a fun little exercise here and make a window that is 3 lines tall by using /L3, and let's try to show off all 3 alignments here. First, let's go in and do AC, and then /AC in this one, so this one is center aligned. Then let's copy and paste this, and then let's do a left aligned one here. So that's AL and /AL at the end. Then let's do one more here where they're all right aligned. Look at that. Now let's see how it looks in game. Now isn't that beautiful? The first line there is center aligned, and then the second line is left aligned, and then finally the third line is right aligned. There is one more way to adjust text alignment, by the way. When using the > sign and then R greater sign text command, it will make all the text after this command right aligned until the next line break. So if we use this at the start of the text, but then halfway through we introduce a line break, then we'll be able to see this in action. Now look at that, the text is right aligned, and then the line breaks, and then the text underneath goes back to being left aligned. Now let's look into formatting for our text, or ways that we can alter the text characters. One thing that I want to quickly reiterate is that these can all be stacked, such that your text is bold and italic and underlined and so on, all at the same time. Now let's get into the formatting commands. All of the commands for text formatting will use the structure of >, followed by the command inside, and then the greater sign. Then at the end, we'll do the same, but with a / inside to close it off. This way, all the text in between will be modified. The first command is B, which will just make the text inside bold. And here's how that would look. The next command is I, which will make all the text inside italic. And here's how that would look. The next command is U, which would make all the text underlined, and here's how that would look. After that is S, which will make all of the text strike through. So a horizontal line will be drawn through the middle of all the text, and here's how that would look. After that is OUTLN, which is outline. What outline does is display a thick outline around all of the text, and it removes the text shadow. There is also outline 2, which displays an even thicker outline around the text and also removes the text shadow. After that is FN equals followed by the name of a font. And then at the end, we would just do FN. We'll be covering this in the very near future though, when we cover fonts. So let's just move on to the next one, which is FS. With FS at the start here, you can do FS equals followed by a number to change the font size. For example, if we crank this up to a high value such as 40, you will definitely be able to see the difference in game. Large fonts can appear cut off in game though, as we just saw, so I would recommend doing a line break at the end to guarantee that multiple lines are drawn. This way, the large font will guarantee to be shown all the way, and it won't be cut off anymore. And lastly, there's O equals, followed by a number here, to change our text opacity. A value of 255 is the highest, which is also the default value, which means the text is not transparent at all. A value of 0 is the lowest, which means that the text will be completely transparent and essentially invisible. A value of 120 is around the halfway point, and you can see the text becoming semi-transparent. This can look kind of neat when you're also using /W followed by empty brackets to remove the window skin and /WM to display the text in the center of the screen. This way it looks more like a spooky overlay, as if a ghost were talking to us. One point I'd like to quickly make here at the end is that the closing part at the end of the text command here is optional. If you just want, for example, the entire line of text to be bold, then you can just put the B at the start here, and then you're done. The closing part afterwards is just if you'd like the bold to only apply to some of the text. We're getting super close to the end now. There's only one more type of text command for us to cover, and that's sound effects. To trigger a sound effect with a text command, use /se followed by the name of the sound effect in brackets. These sound effects live inside of the game's audio SE folder. We can also trigger ME here by using /me followed by the name of the ME that we want to play in brackets. These files live inside of the game's audio ME folder. These are super straightforward and easy to use. Now, let's move on to the final section of the tutorial, which is about fonts. Fonts live inside of the game's fonts folder. Fonts are all .ttf files, which stands for True Type Font File. When double-clicking on a font, we can see a font preview window. From here, along the top, we can select to install the font if we haven't yet installed it on our PC, and we can see some additional info. One important thing here is the font name. Keep that in mind because we'll be using font name later in this tutorial when we change our fonts. If you're new to Essentials and Pokemon fan games, there is a chance that none of these fonts are currently installed on your PC. If that's the case, make sure to install them all. You can install multiple at a time too by selecting them all and doing right-click install. This only takes a couple seconds and will make your games look so much better. So yeah, install all the fonts. If we want to add a new font to the game, we can always download one and then throw the TTF file inside of our game's fonts folder. A great place to download fonts is dafont.com. I'll put a link in the description. This is a great place to download a bunch of high-quality, free fonts. Let's type in Pokemon in the search field and see what we can find. Ooh, look at this. This one here is called Anon, and it looks like a bunch of unknown. I think this one would be cool for us to use in our game. Let's click download along the right here to download a zip file with all of our font files. As we can see here, inside of the zip file is a true type font file, which is TTF. Let's just click it and drag it and put it into our game's fonts folder. Now let's double click it to open it up. All right, so along the top here, we can install it and we can see that the font name is Anon, A-N-N-O-N. We'll be using this later when we change the fonts. Let's also go and install it for good measure. And there we go. Now that we've got the font in our game's fonts folder, and we've got the font installed on our PC, let's go through the ways that we can change how fonts are displayed in-game. The first way is by using the command that we briefly alluded to earlier, where you do fn equals and then the name of the font. So in this case, we know that it's Anon. And look at that, our font is displaying in our message in-game. That's really cool. We've got an unknown font here now for our NPC talking to us. As we can see in this message though, the exclamation mark at the end of the text is missing. That's one thing that's important to consider when using different fonts. Which characters are supported and which are not supported. It looks like for this font here, it doesn't have the exclamation mark supported. That's an easy way to change fonts for individual messages, but what if you wanted to change the font for the entire game all at once? This can be accomplished in the scripts, in the message config script. At the top here, we can see all the font names. We can see the font name for default, as well as small font and narrow font. There are some instances in the game that use small font and narrow font instead of just this default font. But if we wanted to change it so all three are using our unknown font, let's type in Anon into all three of these. Now, when we go into our game, everything should look like an unknown font. And look at that, even on the splash screen here, when starting up our game, we can see that everything is unknown. Let's go into the game now. Let's open up the menu. Wow, Pokemon, bag, red. Let's look at our trainer card too. Look at that, just about everything is an unknown font. In the trainer card, it won't show an unknown font on the top here because that's actually part of the image file. But if we go and look at our Pokemon, look at that, wow. I mean, this causes a good amount of bugs, but it is kind of funny to see everything rendered in this unknown font. That's kind of cool. And that about does it for this tutorial on text commands and fonts. Thank you so much for watching, by the way. I hope you learned something new from this tutorial, and if you did, please remember to like and subscribe. To access my tutorial website, please check the link in the video description. As a reminder, this tutorial is for Pokemon Essentials V20, so if a newer version is released in the future, such as V21, it is possible that the layout or functionality of some of the things that I mentioned could be changed in the future. In general though, this series ought to get you to where you need to go when it comes to making your own Pokemon fan game. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something again, and I hope that you have a good one. Best of luck to you in your Pokemon fan game endeavors. Bye now!